Hello and welcome to the Bitfarms Daily Broadcast, or so we are calling these broadcasts now that we're doing them a bit more regularly, given the fact that shares of Bitfarms have finally awoken. Today happens to be Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. It is not only the last day of the month of September, but it's also the last day in Q3 2025. Now, taking a look at some of the numbers, listen, all in all, I will have to say that Bitfarms has been holding up extraordinarily well. The stock was trading at around $2.82 a share. Last time I checked on my little dashboard, I'm just going to check one more source just to be sure that that number is in fact correct. And lo and behold, it's, it looks like it closed at $2.82 a share. Hey, that is pretty darn amazing. It nearly got up above $3 a share. Bitfarms, as of September 8th of this month, really came alive in a meaningful way. Now, with that said, I did check the Seder Plus .ca website. No official filings from Bitfarms since August 18th. I also checked their news release site, and there is nothing as of, after August 18th of last month. So we're really sort of operating in a bit of a little bit of a vacuum here, so to speak, right? There hasn't been anything officially released by Bitfarms, but we've clearly seen the stock price come alive. I think shares of Bitfarms really do have the potential to go way beyond $3 a share. I do think we may need a bit of an accelerant. That accelerant can come from an external source, such as, for example, the price of Bitcoin, which as of last check was a little over $114,000 a coin. If we were to see the price of Bitcoin really kind of begin to make a meaningful move higher in a sustainable way, it's just naturally going to bring along stocks like Bitfarms, right? Lest we forget, despite all of this talk of HPC AI, Bitfarms has a very meaningful Bitcoin mining operation that generates some incredibly useful revenue. So, hey, if Bitcoin does well, Bitfarms is going to do well. But the real accelerant, right, the main jet fuel that I think this rocket ship, so to speak, is going to really need is going to have to come from the company itself, right? Hey, we're going to need a business update. We're going to need some details as to what may be going on behind the scenes. Maybe we're going to eventually get a news release that it's indicating, hey, we're going to break ground on the Panther Creek data center on such and such a date, right? Hey, then I can visit and maybe see the progress unfolding right before the lens of my camera. These are all things that are going to be really important, right? To really kind of add some fuel to what's going on with the stock price. Now, another company that we've talked about, at least lately, is Canaan. Now, I have to say, Canaan is a much more, from my perspective, a much more speculative situation, right? Because, here's why. And I mentioned this before. They are basically running into a bit of a listing issue. Now, I'm not saying that to scare you or to kind of like throw a wrench in what is otherwise an incredibly well-acting stock price, and I'm talking about Canaan now. But I want us to kind of be aware of what the reality is, all right? So they, if I'm not mistaken, meaning Canaan, need to come back into listing requirements, specifically the minimum bid price of $1 in terms of their stock price by early November. I think it's like November 10th, okay? Now, that would then mark the end of a 180-day grace period extended by the NASDAQ exchange basically about 180 days ago, right, or about 6 months ago. So the window of time to cure this is rapidly coming to a close. Now, the good news is, right, Canaan, from my perspective, I think they do, in fact, meet all of the other listing requirements, so they would just have to simply reapply, and they could very well get another 180-day extension, all right? But I'll tell you something, based on what we're seeing insofar as the stock performance, some of the news that's starting to emerge, and I'm going to get into that in a moment, I think there's a really good chance this stock just naturally gets up above $1 a share and stays above $1 a share. I've looked, and it could be it's hiding in plain sight maybe, but I have yet to see any sort of share consolidation or reverse stock split plan put forth by the company. It's not to suggest that one may not happen fairly soon, just to kind of have it in place in case it comes to that. I'm not wildly enthusiastic about that procedure to the extent it is something that ultimately has to happen to help keep Canaan trading on NASDAQ, then certainly that's a good thing. But if history's any guide, I don't know that they're going to need it. So I did the same thing with Canaan. I checked the SEC website. I took a careful look. Hey, any news, anything coming, to the forefront? And sure enough, today I did see something that came to the forefront, and I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And it is specifically the following. I'm going to click on this. Okay, so here's the headline. Soluna, which is a company that went from about $1 a share to like about $2 a share in one day. Okay, there was nothing subtle about Soluna's surging stock price, something that I think would not be beyond the realm of possibility to see happen with Canaan. Daniel, longtime supporter of these broadcasts, I think I recall you mentioning that you had a bunch of Soluna. Buddy, if you still got it, congratulations. It's a hell of a payday that you have on paper, at least as of right now. So here's the headline. Soluna and Canaan partnered to deploy 20 megawatts of next-gen Bitcoin miners at wind-powered data center in Texas. Okay, I'm not going to read every last word of this news release. I will link to it at the bottom of this broadcast, so you can certainly dig into it. I'll tell you, the reason why this is such a big deal, though, is because it's actually the ultimate win-win. I did have an opportunity to take a look at a little bit more about what Canaan seeks to accomplish when they enter into these partnerships. I'm not totally oblivious as to how these partnerships generally tend to work, because as it turns out, Canaan entered into a similar style partnership with, of all companies, Stronghold Digital Mining. And so I think Canaan is a fantastic company. I love the fact that they did business with Stronghold. And I just like their strategy, which in so many words, hey, look, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of this deal because every deal might be a little bit different. But generally speaking, it tends to be a win-win where, hey, you have the site. It tends to be a fairly mature mining site, right? That, hey, it has everything set up. It's then a matter of deploying Bitcoin mining machines. In this case, it's going to be the A15s, I believe. Yeah, the A15 XP miners. And yeah, sure enough, yeah, with Soluna's infrastructure should be a win for both companies. It will be a win for both companies. This is actually really, really great for both Soluna and for Canaan. I typically believe, and again, every deal is a little bit different. You have a little bit of a sharing of the Bitcoin, right? And that tends to be a really great deal for Soluna, right? Hey, they're going to be collecting Bitcoin. Again, the deal, sort of like the details of the deal will always be subject to negotiation. And I think it's beyond the scope of today's broadcast to really start delving into trying to figure out what the exact percentages will be. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? That sort of thing. The point is, look, we're talking about 1 exahash of Bitcoin mining machines that are going to be deployed. That's definitely a really big deal for Canaan because they are very rapidly attempting to build up their North American infrastructure, or their North American presence is probably a better way to say it. And I think this type of partnership with Soluna, hey, it's a first step. You never know. Usually the first sale is the hardest sale. After that, the second, third, fourth, fifth sale, so to speak, is a lot easier because you've built up trust, you've built up rapport, you've built up a sense of like, hey, from Soluna's perspective, hey, Canaan is a good partner. If there's an issue with one of the machines, they'll go ahead and replace it or they'll service it. From Canaan's perspective, right, they build up a little bit of confidence that, hey, Soluna's a great partner. They're doing their thing to make sure these machines are online and running. So, once you build up a little bit of that rapport, a little bit of that trust, it's so much easier, for the CEOs to get on the phone and be like, hey, look, we've got another 50 megawatts, another 100 megawatts, another 200 megawatts, whatever the case may be. And we'd love for you, in the case of Soluna calling Canaan, Canaan, we'd love for you to be our partner in energizing those megawatts with your Bitcoin mining machines. So, again, I think this is a really, really cool piece of news. It probably helps explain why shares of Canaan were trading as high, I believe, as 94 cents a share earlier in the trading session today. Okay, so we have to kind of zoom out for a moment, though, because this is kind of a big deal. The United States federal government is on the precipice of shutting down. Now, I know that there are those amongst us who might applaud that and think it's maybe a healthy thing if the federal government shuts down for 300 days out of the year and is only open for about 60 days, in which, legislation and other matters are handled. And maybe for the remaining 300 days, legislators are out, holding down full-time jobs, seeing what it's like to operate in the real world, so to speak. Okay, yes, I get that. That being said, though, this is kind of a serious thing, or at least can be serious, if for whatever reason financial markets decide that, hey, maybe this is not such a good thing, right? Hey, maybe there's a fear it's going to go on too long. Maybe there's some concern I saw about the Federal Reserve getting data that they need from the Labor Department, right, to figure out what to do with interest rates, this, that, the other thing. We can get so fixated, right, on all these external inputs, right? Hey, what's it going to do to the price of Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin going to drop down to $109,000 a coin? Is it going to retest some kind of, intra-month low if this shutdown, drags on? All these variables that we have no control over. I prefer to look specifically at news releases. Hey, what's going on with the companies themselves? Yes. But remember, in the case of Bitfarms, and certainly in the case of Canaan, these are relatively small vessels in very, very, very large oceans in terms of the financial markets. So if markets decide to be down 4 or 5% on a given trading day because of whatever, be it, hey, the federal government shutting down, be it some country somewhere in the world deciding they want to carpet bomb some other country in the world, whatever the case may be, whether or not it has a direct impact on the specific operations of these companies, there can still be the, domino effect of, hey, if the financial markets are going to be in turmoil and go down a lot, it can drag down the share price of these companies as well. From my perspective, not investment advice, hey, as tempting as it is to want to maybe play games where it's hey, let me step aside, get out of these shares, maybe I'll time it just right, maybe I can get back in at a lower price, this, that. Dude, I'm not clairvoyant, okay? And dare I say, neither likely are you, and that's okay. We don't need to be clairvoyant, I think, to do well with the Bitfarmses of the world or with the Canaans of the world. I think it helps if some of these macroeconomic, factors work in our favor. And I'm inclined to believe that, for example, in the case of the federal government, hey, I think there's a chance things get resolved in a reasonable amount of time, right? I mean, I'd be shocked if, 3 months from now, we're having a conversation and the federal government is still shut down. So these are all things that, yes, can cause stock prices to gyrate. Maybe they're going to go down. Maybe they're going to go up. Who knows? Hey, at least from my perspective, I just want to keep looking to see what Canaan is going to be releasing in terms of news releases. I think that's going to be critical. Same thing for Bitfarms. At this point, Bitfarms, hey, the shares have done really well. As I said at the outset, hey, that external accelerant, I think, is going to really have to come from inside the company, right? Hey, if we want more rocket fuel for, be it shares of Bitfarms or shares of Canaan, it's going to likely be something that comes from within the company itself. It doesn't hurt, hey, if Bitcoin is shooting up to 120,000 a coin. It definitely doesn't hurt if there are no major macroeconomic things that are going to jolt financial markets, right? All of that stuff helps. But at the end of the day, I do believe both these companies have their futures within their own hands and that they can self-direct their future and really make the future that they want to have. And for those of us who are speculating in these names, I do think that the upside can be very, very meaningful. Okay, my friend, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we will definitely speak with each other again in the not too distant future.